Okay guys, I'm going to walk you through the review today, and you may want to pause and kind of work problems as you need to and check your answers. And you won't all have to watch the entire thing here, so just kind of pick and choose what you need to go back and watch more closely. So I'm going to start by helping you identify which type of conic you are even dealing with. So I have a graphic organizer here. You may want to pause and kind of write this down. We're not doing every last thing under here, but we're doing most of them under each of these. So you'll kind of know based on what we did in class. But first, you're going to start by looking and you're going to determine, do you have an x squared and a y squared? If you don't, then you know you have a parabola. You're going to basically look for the vertex, the focus, the directrix, the axis of symmetry, and then, of course, the focal length and focal width will help you graph that. So what if you do have an x and a y squared? Then you're going to go this direction. You're basically going to look for opposite signs. If you have opposite signs, you have a hyperbola. If you don't have opposite signs, obviously meaning you have the same signs, then you look and see if you have the same coefficients. If you do, it's a circle. If you don't, it's an ellipse. So if you can sort of think through basically 3 decision points as you identify your conics. If you don't have both an x squared and a y squared, it's a parabola. If you have opposite signs, it's a hyperbola. If you have the same sign and the same coefficient, it's a circle. If you have the same sign but different coefficients, it's going to be an ellipse. So that's how we're going to identify our conics. Okay, so let's look at the review itself. So we're supposed to graph this section is telling us it's circle. So what we need is we need our center and we need our radius. So change the sign, 3, negative 4. So our center is simply 3, negative 4. And our radius is the square root of 9, so that will be 3. So I'm going to go 3, negative 4, put my center in place, and then I'm going to go 3 to the right, 3 up, 3 to the left, and then 3 down. And I'm going to leave it just like that just for the sake of time, but you know how to fill in the circle. Just connect. I taught you in class, just kind of do like arcs between each point. All right, so the next one we know is a circle because we're told it's a circle, but what if we didn't know? So we'd look at it and we would say, oh yes, x squared and y squared, they're both positive and they have the same coefficient. This is definitely going to be a circle. But this one I have to complete the square for. So I want to group my x squared with my 4x. And then, of course, I'm going to complete that third term in just a second. And then I'm going to group my y squared with my minus 2y. And again, I'm going to add that third term in just a second. I'm going to subtract 1 from each side, putting the constant on the other side. So half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. But don't forget to add it on the right side as well. Half of negative 2 is negative 1 squared is 1, and don't forget to add it over here, okay? So remember, we're just going to factor this because we need a binomial squared with another binomial squared, and then when I simplify the right side, it's going to give me my radius. So I have 4, 5, minus 1 is just going to be a 4. And remember in class I taught you that it's always going to be half of your b that goes inside the parentheses. Let me kind of zoom in so you see this better. So half of b, so that's going to be x plus 2 all squared. And then this is going to be y minus 1 all squared. So here my center is going to be negative 2, positive 1. And then my radius is going to be the square root of 4, which is 2. So negative 2, positive 1, I'm going to go 2 to the right, 2 up, 2 to the left, and 2 down. And remember, you can't go diagonally in the direction of 2. That'd just be too hard to figure out. So there is the second one. All right, the third one. Again, we're told this is a circle, but what if we were not told it's a circle? This was a little bit more complicated. So let's look at this. Let me get situated here. So what I have here is a situation where I notice every term is divisible by 2. Even the 0 is divisible by 2 because that'd just be 0 over 2, which is 0. So I'm going to start by simplifying this down. Now, do you notice we do have an x squared and we do have a y squared? So that's the first decision point. So it's not a parabola. Do we have opposite signs? No, they both are negative. And in fact, they're both the same coefficient. So that's how we know it's a circle. And whenever this happens and you have kind of this situation, you know you need to simplify this down before you get started. Because you know it's a circle, and truly circles are usually given to you in more like this format. So what if I divide everything by a -2? So I'd like to do that. So divide everything by -2, that'd be x squared. This would be plus 8x. This would be plus y squared. This would be minus 6y. This would be -16, and then 0 divided by -2 is still just 0. So now it looks much more like number 2 that we just completed. So again, we are going to group our x terms together and our y terms together. So I have x squared plus 8x, leave some space. I have plus y squared minus 6y, leave a little bit of space, and add the 16 to the other side. So half of 8 is 4, squared is 16, so add 16 to both sides. Half of -6 is -3, squared is 9, add 9 to both sides. Okay, so this is my perfect square trinomial I'm going to factor for my movement left or right for the center. And this is going to be my binomial squared for my y term. And then I'm just going to add all of this together. And when I add all of that together, I'm going to get a 41. That's 41 because 32 minus 41. Okay, so here factoring this is just x plus 4. This is y minus 3. My center is going to be located at -4, positive 3. And my radius is the square root of 41. Okay, so we talked about this in class that you have to kind of approximate this, thinking about what is the closest perfect square to 41. Okay, so that is going to be 36. So this is going to be a little bit bigger than 6, less than 7, because the square root of 49 is 7. So it's going to be between 6 and 7. So put your center in place, -4, positive 3, and I'm going to go 4, 5, 6, a little bit bigger than 6 to the right, same thing. So I'm going to be up there. Same thing over here, I'm kind of off the grid here. That'd be 5, 6, a little bit bigger, and right about there. And then that would give you your circle. So it's a large circle over there. All right, so moving on. The next thing says write an equation for the circle graphed at the right. So we need the center. Okay, so let me just kind of review that process with you. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So I know my center is -3, 0. So I can simply just put in x plus 3 squared plus y minus 0, but I'm just going to put y squared because that's all I really need. If you put y minus 0 all squared in parentheses, that's not wrong either, but you don't really need to do that. Then I need the distance between my center and a point on the circle. And I can really go either to the right or I can go up to see what that distance is. So when I'm going to the right, I'm basically looking at from -3 to +3. So I'm looking at my x's, and that's going to be a distance of 6. Okay, I can see it a little bit easier if I go from -3 up here, where I go -3, 0 up to -3, 6. So 0 goes to 6. So your y's change when you go up and down. Your x's change when you go left and right. So the difference between 6 and 0 is 6. And in fact, the difference between this -3 and this +3 is also 6. So the radius is 6, so squaring it would give us 36. So that is how you're going to do that one. Okay, now moving along to the ellipse. Okay, so these first ones are just the graphing ones, and then we'll get into some more detail. Okay, so I need my center, which is going to be 3, -1. I'm going to move 4 to the right and left. I'm going to move 5 up and down from that point. So let's go ahead and put that in place. So I have 3, -1. I'm doing 4 to the right, 4 to the left, 5 up, and 5 down. So this is elongated vertically. It's a little bit taller than it is wide, if you want to think of it like that. So we know A is 5, we know B is 4. We figured that out by taking the square roots up here. Just make sure you know how to get those. And then I'm also going to need to find my vertices. So let's locate our vertices. And remember, the vertices are the endpoints of the major axis, which runs vertically like this. So I can read them from the graph, or I can just look at my -1 and go up and down 5. So I like to set it up like that. 3, and then I have -1, add and subtract 5. And I'm actually fine if you leave it like that. Other teachers may have different theories on that, but I'm fine if you leave it like that. But to kind of make sure it looks like your graph. So I have 3, and then if I did -1 minus 5, I'd be at -6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So see how it matches. And -1 plus 5 would be a +4, which is where we are there. So the co-vertices, I'm going to go to the center. I'm going to go 4 to the right and 4 to the left. So I'm adding and subtracting from my x on this one. So 3 plus and minus that movement of 4, comma, -1. Now, if you are the student who really just likes to read it from the graph, by all means just read it from the graph. This concept, though, does help you out to understand things that we do that are a little bit more complex. Now, the foci. I need my c. So c is going to be the square root of the difference between these two. So it's going to be the square root of 25 minus 16, which of course is going to be the square root of 9, which is 3. Now, the foci lie on the major axis, which means I've got to go up 3 and down 3. So I'm just going to start with my center again. I'm not adding to the x, I'm adding to the y. So I'm going to do -1 plus and minus 3. So that should put me at 3 comma -4, which makes sense when I go down 3. That is 3 -4. And I should also have 1, 2, 3. I should also have one at 3 +2. So 3 -4 and 3 +2. So those are your foci. And again, I don't mind if you leave it just like this. But if you like to graph it, you're going to write it like that. And of course, you need to make sure you connect these just like you did for your circles up above. Okay, so moving on, the next one is not in conic form, so we're going to want to change it to conic form. Now, when I look at this, kind of think if you could simplify at least a little bit before you get started. So, is there something that will go into all of those numbers? Well, definitely 2 will go in. And I believe 4 would go into everything. Okay, so we can at least divide it down a little bit. And so I think let's divide by 4. Okay, yeah, let's just try 4. And that'll at least make our lives a little bit easier. So I'm going to have 16x squared divided by 4 is 4x squared minus 8x plus 25y squared minus 100y. And then 1884 divided by 4 is going to give me 296. So minus 296 equals 0. Now, so that's going to make our lives a little bit easier. And I'm going to do it like we always do it. I'm going to group my x terms together. So I have 4x squared minus 8x. And in just a minute, I'll kind of deal with that. And then I have 25y squared minus 100y. And then I'm going to add the 296 to the other side. So there's not really much room here, but I'm adding the 296 there. Okay, now, to do this, I must factor out the a. Remember, you just pull out the a and think of it like dividing this by the 4. So you're going to end up with 4 times x squared, and that'll be minus 2x. Then I take half of this new b value, -1, I squared, I add 1. But remember, I'm not really adding 1 because I pulled out that 4. I'm really adding the 4 and I have to add it to the other side as well. So 296 plus 4, I'll just kind of go down like that. Then I had to do the same thing for the y. So I'm going to kind of try to fit this in here. It's going to be a little crowded. So 25, and then I have y squared minus 4y, because negative 100 divided by 25 is negative 4. Half of negative 4 is negative 2 squared is 4. But did I really add 4? No, I really added 100. Okay, so tidying this up a little bit, I'm going to factor. It's still half of this b value right here, so x minus 1 all squared. And then I have 25, and then I have y minus 2 all squared is equal to, and then I'm just going to add the 296 and the 4, so we get 400 on this side. Okay, now divide everything by this 400. This is the last step, is to basically turn the right side of your equation into a 1. That's really important. So then I have 4 over 400. My denominator here will be 100. 25 over 400, and my denominator is going to be 16. Essentially, I'm just dividing that by 25. So I'm going to have 16 here, and then I have my x minus 1 squared and my y minus 2 all squared. So this is the equation, okay, that I'm going to graph. So my center is going to be 1, 2, and I'm going to go 10 to the right and left, and I'm going to go 4 up and down. So the vertices are the endpoints of the major axis. So this is going to be elongated more in the direction of x. So I'm going to add and subtract the 10 from my x here, the center. Okay, so I have 1 plus and minus 10, comma 2. Those are my vertices. My co-vertices are going to be, when I add and subtract this 4 to the y, I'm going up and down 4. So I have 1 and I have 2 plus and minus 4. So those would be your co-vertices. And then I'm going to take the difference between my denominators, and it's 100 minus 16. So it's going to be, we'll just leave it at 84, so we won't try to simplify that. Remember I told you in class that you can leave it as an unsimplified radical here because it kind of helps you know how big it is. So this is going to be a little bit bigger than 9. But when I write my foci out, remember the foci lie on the major axis. This is elongated horizontally, so I have to go to the right and to the left this distance. So I'm going to go back to my center, and I do 1 plus and minus the square root of 84, comma 2. So there are my foci. All right, so let's go ahead and graph this. That's probably the easiest part. So 1, comma 2, and I'm going 10 to the right and 10 to the left. We're kind of off the graph here. Okay, and then over here we'll be in this space there, so I won't graph that just yet, but you'll kind of know it's equidistant, obviously. And then I'm going to go up by 4 and down by 4. So you can kind of get the general shape of this. It's fairly elongated. Okay, so there we go. So the last one here, number 7, is write an equation of the ellipse graphed at the right. So I need my center, I need my A and my B, and sometimes I have to actually use my C here as well, but let's just see what we have. So my center is -5, -3. So that's easy enough. Now I want to know this distance. This would be my distance to the right and my distance to the left. So -5, -3. Well, I'm going from -5 to the right to -3. So I'm going 2 to the right. And that means I'll also be going 2 to the left. So that means my denominator of x is going to be 2 squared, or 4. So let me put this in place. So x plus 5 squared, y plus 3 squared equals 1. And because I'm going 2 to the right and 2 to the left, I square and I get a 4 there. And then when I'm moving from -5, -3, and I'm going up to -5, 0. So you see the -3 to the 0 is going up 3. So my b is 3, meaning my denominator here is 3 squared, or 9. All right. So there is the front page of the review. So I think what I'm going to do is probably cut this video off and go ahead and make another semi-short 15-20 minute video for the last page. So like I said, go back and rework those that you need to see again.